Pulling out the coupe at the lot, Tony fuck 12, fuck SWAT, buzzing all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick with the box, had to put the stick in the box. Pour up the whole damn field, I'ma get lazy. I got the mojo deals, we been trapping like the 80s.
Infrared eyes, scanning the black, tracking the heat, never turning back. Control 22, a covert gaze. Control 33, in the cosmic maze. Controls in the mix, secrets untold. Silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. Spears, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. In the silence of space, they keep their post, shields unseen yet feared the most. With precision and speed, they warn of danger, keeping us safe from the missile's anger. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. Controls in the mix, secrets untold, silent watchers, brave and bold. In the shadows, they silently glide, protecting our interest, far and wide. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star. As beers, sentinel of the night, watching over with infrared sight, alerting us to threats afar, guiding our defenses like a guiding star.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the stream tonight. Today is Wednesday, so Wednesday is Secret Science Wednesday. Glad to have you guys here. Thanks for being here early. I appreciate you guys. Oh, His Highness is in the chat. Was watching Malaysian Airlines Monday. Sorry, I just realized my chair is in the way over here. I'm going to move that real quick. 1 sec. Also, if you don't like this music, then you can screw off. Why do people complain about music? Music is a subjective thing. There's no music that everybody likes. No matter what music you play, somebody doesn't like it. End of the day, I'm going to play the music I like. What other people like, I don't care. Rhubarb, what's up, brother? Watching that 30,000 feet. Wow, someone's on an airplane, presumably flying around. Appreciate you, man. So one thing I want to play is I got a couple new little clips that we're going to be adding in here. Let me make sure this actually works before. Okay, it is going to work, I think. So I got a couple little clips that I'm going to be able to play in addition to my martini drinking as well. So here's one of them.
All right, then, keep your secret. All right, then, keep your secret.
All right, then, keep your secrets. Love it, guys. Okay, tonight is going to be a shorter stream because I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to do, work-related, and follow up on the clips that are being made and reply to a bunch of people on EtherTech stuff. So if people are watching they're waiting a response from me, I apologize. I've actually just been insanely busy, barely able to keep up with this. So tonight we are going to be looking at unification theories. Okay, so the first, I actually didn't put it in the chat, but I decided to make it more palatable for you guys. We're going to look at this unification theory from John Brandenburg that was on the Kepler Aerospace website. Now, I forgot that I posted all that stuff about Kepler Aerospace. I probably should be talking about that today. We'll save that for next week, and we'll talk about plasmoids and other stuff next week. So instead, this week, we will look at this GEM theory, which is a gravity electromagnetism theory. And then I'm going to do kind of a summary of Hal Puthoff's paper on unifying zero-point fluctuations as an explanation for gravity. because truthfully, I read through it, and guys, even a lot of it even goes over my head, and I can't understand any of the equations. So I think that a lot of people will struggle with some of that, but it's nice to show that this stuff's there. End of the day, we're gonna explain on this stream how gravity is unified with electromagnetism. Hey, Ray Tracer, and before I do that, let me sniff my thing here for my sinuses. Okay, so let's start with general statements on what is gravity in general. And to explain the physics for people, because there's a lot of people that reply on my streams and say, this goes over my head, I don't understand it. The reality of it is it's not that complicated. I think that, yes, if you were trying to do the equations, it's complicated. But what the universe is the universe is space-time filled with energy. And energy equals mass. E equals mc squared. And the entire universe is filled with this energy that's out there. Now, standard physics would call this latent energy maybe the quantum foam or the fluctuations in the vacuum or the virtual particles. They've got a lot of names for it. We just call it the ether. Where that energy is coming from, you can think of it as a higher dimension. So you can't think of it as something that you're going to see or some swirly purple mist. When you're talking about extra dimensions, it's like if you're stuck on a flat space-time of a piece of paper, you can't see the third dimension because you can't look perpendicular to the paper if you're stuck on that. It's the same problem we have with three-dimensional space-time or three-dimensional space, forward, back, up, down, left, and right. We can't see the extra dimension that's there, but there's an extra dimension you can think of it as infolded potentially or outfolded from our dimension that makes it so that we can't see that energy, but we know that energy is interacting with our reality. The video I showed earlier today, Thomas Bearden video, you can find it on my Twitter, explains what energy is and where it comes from. So all energy is coming from the ether. All the energy you're using all the time, all around you. When it comes to gravity, gravity is just a differential in the pressure of the energy densities. So you can imagine a giant balloon, and if you squeeze one side of the balloon, the other side's going to expand. It's exactly the same as how space-time works as well with respect to gravity. So you can imagine that the mass that is impacted onto space-time is bending that balloon. That's what mass is doing as well in a positive way. And then you could think, well, if there's a positive way, when we add mass to space-time, it creates this gravitational pull type effect that we perceive as time moves forward. Then you can begin to see how there might be a reverse of that that's possible. Well, what if you then, instead of adding the mass, you have some type of negative pressure differential? And the Casimir force shows that this is possible, not just with an attractive force, but that theoretically you can create an expansive force or a repulsive force as well. So if we can manipulate gravity using the energy densities, we can manipulate it multi-directional, which then is what you can allow for an anti-gravitational effect. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's show this then. And then I think I'll answer questions here at the end. Okay. So this unification theory here is by John Brandenburg. Let me pull it up. Can you guys see that? Okay, sweet. Let me switch this. Let me move this stuff around so we can see this a little bit better. How big is it? Is it big enough for you guys? I wonder if there's a way to full screen this. Let's go like that. That should be better. Oh, I know what I can do here. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I should have had this set up better. There, like that. That'll work better. Okay. How's that? Okay, good. Okay. The GEMS, gravity, electromagnetism, super unification theory. NASA, I think this is something Space Center. I forget what J stands for. Anyway, and it talks about the EM thruster. So one thing you're going to realize too is that all of the science is connected here. This is why I've been pushing free energy, because once you realize there's a 0-point fluctuation energy that's out there, you realize we can extract that permanently. And if you're confused by that, check out the Tom Bearden video that I posted that explains that all we have to do is keep our dipole open, basically like keep our battery running, and it'll run forever. produce infinite energy. So if we can even show that there's electromagnetic propulsion that's possible without there being some type of propellant, then that will also prove all the other concepts are true as well. It'll prove the ether is real. It'll prove free energy is real. It will prove wormholes are real. Everything we need originates from the same exact scientific concepts. Have I built something? So the question there on have I built something is, yeah, I have a company called EtherTech. We have over Unity device that we are selling that does work regardless of what people say. There's nobody out there who has reviewed it, so nobody's out there who's qualified to say that it doesn't work. We challenged a bunch of electrical engineers and YouTubers with over 6 million followers, and nobody had the balls to even review it. They're afraid of being wrong because it would show that their whole lives are a lie for the most part. And that's what's going to ultimately end up happening, like 100%. The reason why I'm confident isn't a matter of like any fake shit that people come up with. The science is 100% legit. I've seen the real deal myself, and it goes well beyond just making a small free energy device. I mean, we're talking, this is legitimately a matter of national security, truthfully. I don't mean, I'm not even exaggerating there. So space-time transfers of momentum, because there's issues of momentum here. Ultimately, though, we're just exchanging energy with the energy of the ether. So this is how we get around the issue of anything in terms of like creation of energy and the first law of conservation of energy, the first law of thermodynamics. Okay. Hey, Cat, good. How's it going? Okay. Skip past this. Okay, so all propulsion currently involves momentum exchange with reactionless mass. So you can see a rocket has the reaction mass as propellant. So you push the propellant this way. For a submarine, the reaction is the medium. So you're pushing the water. So this is the difference. This is really important for people to understand here. So, if you're pushing with propellant, then that's the propellant is what's giving you the momentum. If you're in a submarine, then the medium is what's giving you the momentum. Okay. An electromagnetic rocket is basically taking electromagnetic waves and it's using those to push. Now, this is part of the reason why I was so interested in Professor David Greer out of NYU and his tractor beam. The concept is basically the same as this. And he's basically figured out a way, instead of having electromagnetic waves push, the question here is, what is it pushing off of, right? If you're sending the waves out there, what's it doing? Now, if electromagnetic waves hit you, it can push. But what he's been able to find is you have the electromagnetic waves hit something and it can pull. And then this perspective, you have to figure out, what are you pushing off of here? Are you pushing off of the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum? So this EagleWorks thruster is the original EM drive right here. That was produced and tested by NASA. And there is another paper out there that proves that they did find some anomalous propulsion that was actually referenced in, I think, Salvatore Pais' patent that's out there. EagleWorks thruster emits no EM radiation, suggests exchange of momentum with the vacuum itself. How is that possible? So it's exchanging momentum with the vacuum. Quantum mechanics suggests the vacuum can be treated as a medium capable of momentum exchange. So here's the answer right here. Here's your ether. Quantum mechanics suggests the vacuum can be treated as a medium. Yahtzee, right? Quantum vacuum is full of EM waves called zero-point fluctuations and virtual particle antiparticle pairs. Okay, great. And so a lot of people said, oh, well, you can't create particles out of nothing, but physics already knows it's happening. They call them virtual antiparticle particle pairs that are annihilating themselves. Conceptually means the vacuum is a substance that can exchange momentum with the spacecraft. So here's the answer. Now, the situation here is that you can exchange the momentum with the vacuum, with the ether, and this is how we can basically propel ourselves through the ether the same way that we could propel ourselves through the water. And this is why it's so important to understand the concept of the ether. Now, you can call it whatever you want to call it. Some people are trying to call it the quantum foam or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And other people will call it, the quantum fluctuations in the vacuum. I'm choosing to call it the ether, but that's all you want. Okay, I'm putting don't spam my chat, please. Also, just real quick note for people, like everybody, there's a lot of people out there that have their own experiences, that they think they know all the answers, blah, blah, blah. Some of it's probably very valuable information. I don't have all the time in the world to individually lift up every single person that's out there. I just look at stuff whenever I want to look at stuff. So chill out a little bit, realize that this isn't going to be a sprint. Your pet theories might be great. You've probably noticed some of these people in my replies as well, where there's one person right now who thinks that they know the answer to everything, which they're basically wrong about everything, which is sad. But, and then other people who are trying to come up with, coping mechanisms for figuring out why they've been lied to, etc. End of the day, I don't really care. Just come to your own journey of discovery. If you want to promote your ideas, put your ideas out there, man. And if I like people's ideas, I'll post them. I'm not, I don't actually take requests for retweeting anything ever. Doesn't even matter if you're one of my friends. If I like something, I tweet it. If not, I don't. Okay. Quantum Heisenberg uncertainty principle predicts that the vacuum is filled with virtual plasma of virtual particle antiparticle pairs and 0-point field oscillations down to the Planck scale and wavelength. So this is also going to be important with the field oscillations, because we have to think of things as moving all the time here. And now this is also going to be pretty relevant with respect to the paper we're going to look at here in a minute. This is not dark matter. This is a good question, Brandon. This is dark energy. So, and presumably this theory will cover both dark energy and dark matter. Dark matter is simply what we use to explain why when we look at galaxies far away, the stars on the outside of the galaxy are spinning much faster than we would expect. We would generally expect them to be moving a lot slower, because the further away you are from the center point of the major mass, you should be going slower, but instead they're moving much faster than we expect. Okay. And dark energy, if you want the layman's terms of dark energy, I think it was derived from the cosmic microwave background, but the idea is that that's the energy that allowed the universe to expand faster than the speed of light from the Big Bang. And the real reality is dark energy is the ether. It's all the energy that's in the ether. Now, I don't know if it's a one-to-one match in terms of the math and the equations, but dark energy can be explained fully by the idea of this 0-point fluctuations in the ether. If you add up all the energy, it's a huge amount of energy, practically unlimited amount. Now, notice the Casimir force gets brought up as well. Yeah, so crypto just explained it as well. Dark energy is basically the energy of the ether. The Casimir force constantly gets brought up. Now, keep in mind, just because we have this plate experiment, this doesn't mean this is the only way to manipulate it, but this does show that there is this vacuum pressure differential, and that's what's important, is that certain wavelengths cannot fit between the plates. And what this does is this causes there to be a pressure differential. There's a negative pressure differential on the inside compared to the outsides of the plates. So what happens? They come together. And so this is really the scientific fundamental proof of there being that 0-point energy is linked directly to the vacuum. And you could argue then gravity, because when you see this pressure and this attractive force, the first thing you think of is gravity, right? If I drop something, it's just on a much smaller scale. Okay. So I'm not going to talk too much about special relativity, because I think that special relativity is going to end up breaking down when we start dealing with stuff like warp drives. What is required for pushing on the vacuum to be possible? So this is basically saying that conventional physics would say that we can't push on it because the vacuum is theoretically not connected to mass. What we're going to find out from the paper we're going to read here in a minute is that it is. It can actually, mass is actually mathematically explained by math can mathematically explain gravity and the interaction that we are seeing and measuring with the 0-point fluctuation field, or the ether. So they say space-time is massless, but its geometry is anchored in general relativity to nearby masses. A reaction mass can be connected to the medium of space-time in general relativity. So, um, okay, sure. Let's see here. Okay, we must be able to modify space-time with electromagnetism to exchange momentum with its mass that anchors the structure. So right here, this is what's basically saying that we can manipulate the energy potential of a local region of mass to cause thrust, an impulse drive in this case. The effects are going to be very small if we do it on a very small scale, but then you can imagine what it would take just to move it up. Now here's the math. Particles follow geodesics in spacetime. So where does momentum flow? Now this is also something that's really important. Now I want to really briefly explain gravity to you guys, okay? So in order to understand gravity, if you were to throw an object, it's going to look like the object is falling. But what's actually happening is your object is moving forward in a straight line along a geodesic path. And so is the Earth. So let's say this hand down here is the Earth. The object is moving, and this object is moving as well. And what's happening over the course of time is they're coming together. They're converging. Okay. So while it looks like for us the object's just falling down, if you were to graph it on the time dimension, it would look like this. Okay. So that's really important to understand, because then you can understand how if you were able to manipulate the geodesic of the object falling, then this object now doesn't need to fall anymore over time. Now it can go up, it can go whatever direction you want. That's exactly what we see the orbs doing in the MH370 videos. They're creating their own geodesic path. And by creating their own geodesic path, they're now not falling to the Earth anymore. Okay. You don't see that guy's comments because I timed him out. He was spamming me too much. A lot of people just get really excited because maybe they've got something important, or they think they've got something important, and they demand I look at it. It's fine. Okay. I didn't realize there were so many slides. We're going to skip through some of this. Okay, the Planck scale. The Planck scale is very, very tiny scale. The Planck force is what Salvatore Pais called the superforce. At the zero-point fluctuation Planck scale, particle and antiparticle pairs that are quantum black holes of the Planck mass form and annihilate at the Planck length. This action makes space-time a foam at the Planck scale of the plus and minus charges. So right here, this is just explaining the ether with extra explanations. At the end of the day, the ether is essentially the foam that is just these charges that are out there. And this is really like how physicists nowadays try to explain it, instead of having to say, well, we messed up when we removed the ether 100 years ago. Now we've come to this idea of, okay, we're going to explain the quantum fluctuations and the virtual particles as this quantum foam. And if you want to think of it that way, great. Well, that's the ether. Okay. So there you go. Let's see. Okay, now another thing that's really interesting here is that when he talks about Einstein, it says Einstein discovers quantum zero-point fluctuations and helps Kaluza-Klein theory get published. Now, Kaluza-Klein's theory used an extra dimension to unify gravity and electromagnetism. In fact, this is what Tom Bearden spoke about. This was in 1919, I believe. So this was 105 years ago that this was already figured out. So part of the reason why I don't ever say I've figured something out is that the scientists already figured this out a long time ago, before anybody basically on Earth was born. And we've just been living a lie for 100 years. And it's just been suppressed. Okay. So Brandenburg's theory here, gravity is equivalent to an array of electric and magnetic fields. That's what E and B fields are, drifts created by the quantum zero-point fluctuation. So gravity, he's saying, is explained by electromagnetism in the foam. He doesn't really dig into it like too much there, but you know what's his face? Hal Puthoff in his paper, he goes into more depths in terms of explaining it and showing the math for how it works. Let's see. What else do we want to look at here? Wait, isn't this the exact same thing I just read? Okay, so the theory is a formal combination of the zero-point fluctuation gravity concept of Sakharov. Now, this is really important. So Sakharov, oh, I'm not showing you guys the slides. Jesus, thank you. Thank you, Beth. I can't believe, thank you for calling that out. So you guys weren't seeing the slides. Let me just go back up and show you what I was showing here a second ago. Okay, so here's the Kaluza-Klein part right here. Here is gravity is equal to the electromagnetic drifts in the quantum foam. And then down here, and here's a link if you guys want it, I'll put it in the chat for you guys. This is from the Kepler Aerospace website, by the way, guys. So the fact this Kepler Aerospace website has all this stuff on it is pretty wild. Oh, wow. James, thank you very much, man. Appreciate the donation. $25 donation by James on Cash App. That's awesome. Thank you very much, James. You don't have to reveal who you are in the chat, but thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, one more thing I want to bring up right here. I'll switch back to this. I was actually going to talk about this in a second, but since you brought up the question, Hollow Cipher brings up, isn't it hilarious that they call Puthoff a pseudoscientist on his Wikipedia page? Yes, this goes to show how much the disinformation is at play. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Hal Puthoff knows about that and just lets it go because he just doesn't give a shit. Claiming that Hal Puthoff is a pseudoscientist is like claiming that Einstein is a pseudoscientist or that Tesla was a pseudoscientist. Literally some of the dumbest shit ever. Like, out of all the scientists that I found out there, like, Puthoff is on my Mount Rushmore of the people who've figured this stuff out. Up there with Bearden. I mean, in terms of the people in the last 30, 40 years, like, these people are just straight up geniuses. To me, Puthoff is higher up there than Stephen Hawking, like, by quite a good ways, too. And Hawking's done some incredible stuff. Big respect to him. It's the difference between the people that are publicly understood and known and the people that aren't. You guys want to know something crazy? This is obviously just a rumor that I've heard. I've heard that Puthoff has been in consideration for the Nobel Prize like five or more times. And the reason why he's been passed up every time is because of his work with remote viewing in like the 60s and the 70s. And then he makes this shift. If you look at his timeline in the 80s, where he goes to 0-point energy, it's like he just figured it out, which, if you ask me, like, he saw something and then all of a sudden he was like, okay, I've got to figure out how this works. And then he also found the scientists, and the rest is pretty much history, because his work on 0-point fluctuation, 0-point energy is just mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Okay, there you guys go. So real quick for Adrian. Yeah, Adrian. The orbs not only counteract gravity, but they neutralize the mass of inertia. So here's the difference, though, is that they're doing both of those things at the same time. If you create your own geodesic, your own warp drive, you're actually displacing yourself from the gravitational forces of everything else. So I think there's a direct correlation between making your own geodesic and your inertia being reduced to zero, which means your mass is zero, which means you can just do whatever you want. You can just start kind of pretty much violating the laws of physics as if there was mass. Pretty cool. Okay. Okay, so this is important here with Sakharov, okay? Because what you're going to find is that Hal Puthoff actually referenced Sakharov. Basically, Hal Puthoff says that Sakharov already figured this out, and that Hal Puthoff basically is just doing the math to prove that Sakharov was correct, and that gravity is literally just explained by the 0-point energy density fluctuations and the fifth dimensional concept of Kaluza-Klein. I mean, look at this. Look at this, guys. Look at this slide right here. This is literally what I've been saying for the last 9 months. I mean, granted, I guess the 0-point fluctuation thing, that's pretty new for me, but the fifth dimension of the Kaluza-Klein. So Kaluza-Klein figured it out. And the reason why it says 1926 here is because Klein came in and like advanced Kaluza's theories and like corrected some of the stuff to make it better. So that took another 7 years. And Sakharov's the one who said gravity is just, it's not really, gravity is not like a fundamental force. It's just explained by 0-point energy fields within space-time. And this is the reason why, like the, why we haven't found a graviton, why the Large Hadron Collider hasn't found anything as well. Because it's not just another fundamental force that's out there. Okay. For 888 Chris, last warning, buddy. Next time it's a permanent ban from the channel. I'm not dealing with no concern trolling in the chat, whatever. This isn't the right place. This isn't Destiny's stream, okay? So if you want to be a little cuck, go find Destiny and you can rage in his chat or some shit like that. Not interested, man. Okay. Okay, so here's the other thing as well, guys. So Sakharov proposed gravity as a radiation pressure produced by variations in the quantum zero-point fluctuations. So take a look at this here. Now you can tell here that we have this attractive force here, and we can have a repulsive force. Now, if you imagine this is space-time here, you can imagine that now you see this like whole field, and we have these energy densities all around us. Now, the relative density of that energy is going to be what causes the various attractive forces that we see all around us. And then the Poynting vector defines the direction of the radiation pressure. That's going to be Poynting vector is going to be our magnetic field and our electric field, which determines the direction, the vector travel of the pressure. Now, this is important because remember we were talking about the MH370 videos. We figured out that the Poynting vector of the plane in the MH370 videos is backwards. So the pressure of the plane is going backwards. You were raging at the club with me? That's awesome. This is a true story by that commenter right there. So if I show you real quick what we're talking about here, and this is just another, these videos are 1000% real, and it wouldn't surprise me that the government's trying to hide this as much as they can. So the Poynting vector says the plane should be going backwards, and what do we see the plane doing here? It's getting sucked backwards. You can tell because you can see the reflection of the plane sticking out of the back of the wormhole here, various to the frame right beforehand. So the pressure of this effect, this event that's happening on the plane is pulling the plane backwards. This is exactly consistent with the idea of zero-point fluctuations being what the explanation for gravity is. There you go. Show it one more time. So why do we think the plane went backwards? Well, because that's what the science says the plane went. Plane went backwards, guys. Okay, and then here's Sakharov as well, the zero-point theory of gravity. We're going to skip through some of the math here. Here's Kaluza-Klein, fifth dimension. So actually, the more I looked at this, I was like, okay, well, Brandenburg's got it figured out. Brandenburg definitely has it figured out as well. And this is the thing. It's like not just one person. And Brandenburg almost certainly has worked with Hal Puthoff. I mean, what you find is a lot of these guys all talk to each other behind the scenes. They all know each other. Okay, this is a little bit beyond me. And then this also actually helps to explain quantum teleportation. Because at the Planck scale, the smallest scales possible, then it's essentially a black hole. And why is that important? Because a wormhole is just a black hole without an event horizon. So now you have ER equals EPR. At the smallest scales, particles are creating little wormholes. This is how we're able to have quantum teleportation. And then on larger scales, we're just scaling that up to macro size. We're creating really a little black hole, but we're creating it at a larger scale. That's what's happening in the MH370 videos. So just like you see right there where it says it becomes smaller, it finally reaches the Planck size, and then a black hole forms. This also is why if you're into remote viewing, you should love what I'm talking about here. So this is also part of the reason why I think Hal Puthoff found this, is because if I'm Hal Puthoff and I'm trying to explain how remote viewing is possible, then quantum teleportation is the answer. And if you figure that out, then you figure this out. And then you realize, oh, well, okay, quantum teleportation of information is possible. How do you scale that up? Well, the answer is the zero-point fluctuations are the missing link. ER equals EPR stands for Einstein-Rosen. Einstein-Rosen is short for Einstein-Rosen bridge, aka a wormhole. Einstein-Rosen bridge, a wormhole, is a mathematical solution to Einstein's general relativity to achieve faster than light relativistic travel. And why I say relativistic means that from your perspective going into the wormhole, you just walk through a doorway. From the perspective of the people who are watching on the outside, it looks like you just teleported from one location to the other. Now, this is a proven mathematical theory or solution to Einstein's general relativity. It's not, it's more than just a random theory. And then EPR is Einstein-Poldowski-Rosen. And what this stands for is quantum entanglement, quantum teleportation, aka what you're seeing on the screen right now, where it becomes a black hole. So ER equals EPR, and this idea of ER equals EPR has been around for a while, but it was promoted by Leonard Susskind and Juan Maldacena. Juan Maldacena has written a paper about humanly traversable wormholes as well. So you're starting to see the connections now between these theories that are out there. And I think it's funny because some people that don't understand science try to claim that this is Dunning-Kruger, or what's the other theory, confirmation bias. That is not what's happening here. This is called real science, where you build upon theories to achieve the next evolution of explanation. That's how science has always operated. So a lot of people out there, like, sadly don't understand the concept of science or what science is or how you achieve science. Okay, let me see what else we got here. I think we're going to skip through the rest of this. Just changing of bosons. Weight loss and gyroscopes. So a lot of people have brought up the idea of gyroscopes. Admittedly, I haven't looked at them that much, but I have a feeling that gyroscopes are going to have some strong connection to a lot of this science as well. Local Poynting vector caused by applied power causes destructive interference with the 0-point fluctuations, causing gravity, and locally weakens it. So what he's saying right here is that you apply power, electromagnetism, to an area, and you can manipulate the energy density of that local area, like your balloon. So imagine the balloon again. This is my balloon. Squeeze this side's going to react. Now, because we have conservation, that's why when I squeeze this side's going to increase. So that's why when we disappear a plane from over here, the plane's going to appear over here. This is how we're going to maintain momentum in our system that we've created, and energy as well. Pretty cool. Okay, I think. And now you guys realize, like, why I don't have, there's no doubt whatsoever EM drive, which is what you're looking at right here, definitely works. Like, EM drive is like the most rudimentary, basic form of this science. It's like learning how to figure out how to make a fire, where it's like people say, oh, fire's not real. And you're like, well, yeah, here you go. This is how I make it. I just rub two sticks together until it lights on fire. And then now I've got a lighter and I can just start it up, or I've got an oven and I can now cook something in it. This is the difference. EM drive is like the most basic thing that's out there, which is still cool because it proves that fire is possible, or in this case, that 0-point fluctuations, that we can manipulate the vacuum. But what the government's figured out is just light years beyond EM drive. Okay. So I think we're going to, oh yeah. And then this also explains that basically the EM drive then is, what's the EM drive doing based on what we just learned right now? It's manipulating the energy densities in the vacuum in a specific area. And it seems like it's actually really simple to be able to pull this off. Basically, it's just a cone, and then the force is actually going out of the smaller side of the cone. This also looks very similar to the Townsend-Brown effect, the Byfield-Brown effect as well. And you can see if you're bending the gravity lines of force here, now you're slightly manipulating your geodesic. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Okay. NASA EagleWorks was the one that was working on this as well with respect to the EM drive. And this got suppressed, like, just to show how easy it is to suppress stuff. Like, presumably, this is my theory of what happened. They actually measured anomalous thrust from this. NASA did. And they started making big news. And people didn't really figure out how big the implications were. And so what ended up happening is that they had somebody come in and basically say, oh no, we could explain it by like some temperature difference or something. They just made some bullshit up. They didn't prove it. They just made it up. And then they said, okay, that debunks it. Like, do you notice how easy it is to debunk stuff? Humans are incredibly stupid. Incredibly stupid. The standards of evidence to prove something is real is so disparate with the standard of evidence to debunk something. All you have to do to debunk something is come up with any fake explanation that only even it doesn't even hold up to any scientific scrutiny. It's just you have to make something up that sounds even halfway plausible, and everybody will just take it at straight face value. The same thing they did with the MH370 videos, where they falsely claimed that this effect was used in the videos. This effect is not used in the videos. All you have to do is have eyes to see that you're not looking at the same effect here. This is a perfect overlay of the effect into the videos. Right? But there's like millions of people literally think this VFX is a perfect match, even though when we're looking at it right now, it's not even remotely similar. This is the only frame that's even remotely close, and it's not even close in the middle at all, and the edges don't line up at all either. All they had to do, and to trick people, all they had to do was point at a couple dots that were in a similar spot with using arrows, and that's tricks enough people to think that this is used. That's exactly what they did with EM Drive. They just said, oh, no, temperature can explain the differences. And the whole world just goes, oh, yep, okay, this is debunked. You're like, but wait, no, we measured anomalous thrust. Oh, but no, temperature. That explains it. Temperature, that's it. That's all. Yep, that's all. Right? So this is why it's probably more important I teach you guys that than anything else, because it just goes to show how easy it is to suppress this type of technology. Just it's so easy. That's what unfortunately like really got me kind of depressed on humanity in general. Now, the reason why I stay positive is because I realized, well, if I was able to see through it and figure it out, I mean, it took me 41 years, but eventually I did, that other people can figure it out as well, like a lot of you guys as well. Yeah, cold fusion. I mean, all this stuff's being suppressed. Everything related to this science and technology is being suppressed. And so now you understand as well why they can't let any of it seep out. Because if any one aspect of this technology seeps out, free energy, EM drive, 0-point fluctuations as an explanation for gravity, warp drives, all this stuff, nothing can be allowed to slip out. The moment any of it slips out, all of it's proven true. All of it. The moment that we upend the laws of thermodynamics as people conventionally think of them, it's going to break so many people's minds, and then everyone will figure out all the other stuff. So the reason why he's got the Star Trek thing on here is because most of Star Trek's going to probably end up being proven to be true. I mean, that's just like a lot of the stuff in Star Trek. I don't know where Star Trek got their information from, but like, holy shit. I mean, the EM drive is Star Trek impulse drive. Warp drive is literally warp drive, as we have been talking about with the orbs. And then wormholes are also in Star Trek as well. Deep Space Nine is right next to a big wormhole. Although I'd argue the wormhole in Deep Space Nine is more akin to a Stargate because it doesn't move around. A wormhole you can create anywhere. It just requires entanglement. Okay. Now, let me take a quick sip of this. I'm going to look and see if there's any questions, and then we'll go to this paper as well. Now, this paper is wild, guys. So, oh yeah, and for Brandon, yes, there's not even the same number of frames in the VFX that they say was used as there is in the video. Like that's, it's not even the same number of frames. If you play it in the full speed as well, it doesn't even line up. It's just, it's crazy. It's just crazy how easy it is to lie to people, And then even big podcasters like Joe Rogan and stuff, they fall for it as well. And unfortunately, most people on this planet are practically retarded. We're bringing the word retard back because it's just, you're going to see probably the word retard used a lot in a lot of these papers as well. This one doesn't use it, but the other one on energy extraction does, which is pretty funny. Oh, where is it? Anyway, it's in there. You can trust me on that. You're going to see it around. It was a different time back then, guys. Okay, so this paper right here is 1988. 1988. Zombie is what it is. No passion about anything. Guys, I'll opine at the end of the stream about the nature of society today, but it's fucking depressing, man. Like it's crazy. Just even going to the gas station and get this can of Coke, the shit I see, I'm just like, man, we need free energy badly. Like we've got to wake people up. We've got to fix this world. It is so messed up, man. Okay. So this paper, 1989, 1988, whatever, it looks like it was revised and updated. So Puthoff already had this figured out in 1989. I was 7 years old. Okay. So this was 34 years ago. So once again, this is like up there with Tom Bearden talking about scalar physics in 1985. This is why, guys, like I don't go out there claiming that I've invented some new laws of physics or any bullshit like that. Like it's scary how long it's just been sitting out there. In the world, like we've been trying to catch up to this. And like honestly, we're at the tip of the spear right now where everybody else is just retarded and we're like able to be like, oh wait, no, there is something here. Like these people weren't crazy cranks. Like they actually had it figured out. This paper's got more references than any normie is ever going to be able to figure out. Now let's just start with the abstract. Sakharov, remember we just heard about him from 1968? He was literally referenced right over here. Right there. Theory is a formal combination of the ZPF concept of Sakharov. And now you have here in 1989, you have Hal Puthoff talking about Sakharov proposed a suggestive model in which gravity is not separately existing fundamental force, but rather an induced effect associated with the zero-point fluctuations of the vacuum, in much the same manner that van der Waals and Casimir forces are. So what are the van der Waals and Casimir forces? Van der Waals forces are the forces of attraction through subatomic particles when they're very close to one another. Casimir effect, as we've talked about almost every day, is the idea of the plates when you get the plates together. Now, what's the difference? The difference is the van der Waals forces are happening on the atomic scale, very, very short distances. The Casimir effect is happening on a macroscopic scale. You can literally see it with your eyes. So you can't see the van der Waals forces. They're too small. The Casimir effect you can literally see. Some people will try to gaslight you and claim that the Casimir force is the van der Waals force or whatever, but they're fundamentally different because one of them happens at the macroscopic, what's this? Weird. One of them happens at the macroscopic level and one happens at the microscopic level. Somebody just like somehow joined my stream. I don't even know how that's even theoretically possible. Weird. Okay. In the spirit of this proposal, we develop a point particle ZPF interaction model that accords with and fulfills this hypothesis. In this model, gravitational mass and its associated gravitational effects are shown to derive in a fully self-consistent way from electromagnetic ZPF-induced particle motion, the Zitterbewegung. So I didn't know what the heck the Zitterbewegung was. And apparently the Zitterbewegung is like the fluctuations in the particles. They're always moving, essentially. And if anyone knows better, please let me know. But like always shaking around and moving here. Ryan cracks me up. Ash is giving a free PhD level quantum physics class up in here. The funny part is I don't even know if I am because I never took PhD level quantum physics. I just teaching stuff that I'm finding, but that wouldn't surprise me. Actually, I do wonder, like, how does this, if I were to like go to school, like when would I learn about this? Probably never. Because of its electromagnetic ZPF underpinning, gravitational theory in this form constitutes an already unified theory. So I think this is kind of a shout out, basically saying this has already been figured out. And all Hal Puthoff is doing the math here to show that if he does the math checks out. And the math will show that even though we have mass on space-time and we see the gravity, that can also be explained by basically disrupting the zero-point energy field that's all around us as well. Pretty cool, huh? And just, I don't know the answer to William, but basically, William, what you find out through this paper, and I suggest checking it out if you're more advanced and you can understand the concepts, is that this basically gravity boils down to electrostatic force. That's basically what this boils down to. When you get to the very small scales, you're just dealing with charges. The same way where it's like, why does electrostatic force look so much like gravity? Because it is gravity. Because it is. The electrostatic forces are unified directly to the energy density of space-time itself. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read the introduction. How long is the introduction? Yeah. I'm going to read the introduction. I'm going to read the conclusions of each of the 3 points that he makes, and then I'm going to read the conclusion, just for the sake of time here. And then I'll answer some questions after that. Yeah, the inverse square law, that's also explained in here as well. So inverse square law just says like how much the force dissipates over distance. And I think this also explains why gravity doesn't, or actually no, gravity does dissipate over distance as well. But all of those are explained in this paper as well. Gravity isn't necessarily a byproduct of magnetism, but electromagnetism are connected, so kind of. Okay. Gravitational theory, whether in its scalar Newtonian form or its tensor general relativistic form, is recognized to be essentially phenomenological in nature. As such, it invites attempts at derivation from a more fundamental set of underlying assumptions, and 6 such attempts are outlined in the standard reference book Gravitation by Meissner, Thorne, and Wheeler. Of the 6 approaches presented in Meissner, Thorne, and Wheeler, perhaps the most far-reaching of its implications for underlying model is one due to Sakharov, namely that gravitation is not a fundamental interaction at all, but rather an induced effect brought about by changes in the quantum fluctuation energy of the vacuum when matter is present. In this view, the attractive gravitational force is more akin to the induced van der Waals and Casimir forces than to the fundamental Coulomb force. Although speculative when first introduced by Sakharov in 1967, this hypothesis has led to a rich and ongoing literature on the quantum fluctuation-induced gravity that continues to be of interest. In this approach, the presence of matter in the vacuum is taken to constitute a kind of set of boundaries, as in a generalized Casimir effect. And the question of how the quantum fluctuations of the vacuum under these circumstances can lead to an action and metric that reproduce Einstein gravity has been addressed from several viewpoints. These are treated in some detail in a comprehensive review by Adler on gravity as a symmetry breaking effect in quantum field theory. On the basis of heuristic and dimensional arguments along general relativistic lines, Sakharov argues that in a vacuum fluctuation model for gravity, the Newtonian gravitational constant g should be determined by an expression of this form here. Okay. Where this WC corresponds to an effective Planck cutoff frequency of the vacuum zero-point fluctuation spectrum. In this approach, the small but finite value of the gravitational constant is an inverse reflection of the high value of high frequency cutoff of the zero-point fluctuations. In this paper, we explore Sakharov viewpoint on the basis of conceptually simple classical model in which matter in the form of charged point particles interact with the zero-point fluctuations of the vacuum electromagnetic field. As part of the development, the model predicts one to be precisely of the form, and then here's another equation. In order to constitute self-consistent, viable basis for gravitation, however, a first-order zero-point fluctuation model for gravity must provide not only a basis for calculation of the gravitational constant g, but must also account for the genesis of the gravitational mass and the attractive inverse square law force. There's the answer to the person in the chat. What's this? Yeah, somebody somehow joined my stream, dude. That's wild. Wait, how are people getting into my stream right now? What the fuck? Did I post the wrong thing somewhere? Somebody hacked my stream somehow. Oh, it's public? Are you sure? I didn't know that's a thing. Hold on. Has it always been public? Give me a sec, chat. I don't even see a way where you can do that. I've never had this happen before. Oh, I posted a link to the invite. Oh, shit. I posted the wrong link. Well, whatever. No big deal. We're not going that much longer. It's all good. We'll be done here in a minute. They can't do anything anyway. They just sit in the background. Okay. I guess I apparently posted a wrong link somewhere in the in the chat. All good. No big deal. Okay. I was just confused for a second how that was possible. Okay, so basically it's saying you have to be able to account for gravity. You must be able to account for the mass that is accounting for gravity, and you must be able to account for the inverse square law. Okay. In the particular version of Sakharov hypothesis pursued here, the mass is shown to correspond to the kinetic energy of 0-point fluctuation induced internal particle motion, aka the Zitterbuergang. While the force is found to be of a long-range retarded, there it is, long-range retarded van der Waals type, associated with the broad spectrum 0-point fluctuation radiation fields generated by that same Zitterbuergang motion. There you go, guys. There's your word. We're gonna get canceled now. I'm just gonna repeat it just for fun. While the force is found to be of the long-range retarded van der Waals type. Okay, sorry, I'm a little child. To arrive at the above results, basically, we simply assemble together in a straightforward fashion previously published results regarding 0-point fluctuation models of van der Waals and related effects in flat spacetime. When this is done, one finds the leading term in the interaction potential previously unexamined to be Newton's law with no free parameters to be fixed. In such a fashion, the identification of this term as gravitational emerges naturally from the concatenation of the previously published results. So basically right there, he's saying we're taking all existing theories that are already out there, not inventing anything new, and just proving that Sakharov was correct. Yet further evidence for the correctness of this interpretation is provided in section 6, where details of the pattern that emerge are presented in the context of a self-consistent, coherent picture of the underlying dynamics of the gravitational force that conforms to the facts as we know them. There you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at these first three solutions here. So let me see. I think the first one somewhere down here, he talks about an observer being accelerated or not accelerated. So this first one is 0-point fluctuation electromagnetic fields. These indicate that an accelerated observer would see the background 0-point fluctuation spectrum augmented by a term proportional to the square of the acceleration. Application of the principle of equivalence then indicates that the additional spectrum contribution seen in a frame with acceleration A should also be seen in a non-accelerated frame with local gravitational field G produced by gravitational mass M. Thus, the principle of equivalence predicts an additional contribution to 0-point field energy by a gravitational mass, a requirement that must be met in any 0-point fluctuation-based theory of gravitation. Since this additional contribution of energy is electromagnetic in nature, we must ascribe to mass an appropriate electromagnetic field generating function. Okay, so what did I just say right there? This is actually really important. So what he's saying here is that mass is adding to the energy density of the 0-point fluctuations in the spacetime. Why is this important? Because if we're saying that the 0-point fluctuations in spacetime are what accounts for gravity, then we have to understand why the Earth is causing gravity. Because the Earth isn't, I mean, unless we say that the Earth is 0-point fluctuations. And what he's saying right now is that, yes, we can essentially say that any body of mass that's out there is essentially, due to the math here that he shows, adding to the 0-point fluctuations. Why do I think this is interesting? Because I like to think of the 0-point energy at the equilibrium level. You can reduce it and you can increase it. Now, what is mass doing? Mass is increasing it, and therefore we get a pulling effect. Imagine if you could reduce it, then maybe you get a repulsive effect. Why is that important? Because then it kind of goes to the idea of negative mass or negative energy doing the opposite of what positive mass is doing. You add mass to your 0-point energy, you're having an attractive force. You reduce mass, now you're creating a negative pressure differential. Okay. I could end up being wrong on that, but that's how I understand it right now. Now, the next part is the Zitterbuergang model. Okay, oh boy. Can't remember. I think it's down here in the bottom left. Okay, it is thus seen that the expectation value of the kinetic energy of the part on Zitterbuergang motion reaches a finite magnitude limited by the finite value of the as yet undetermined 0-point fluctuation cutoff frequency. The energy calculated in this way is the nature of the so-called transverse energy in quantum electrodynamics of a particle in response to electromagnetic 0-point fluctuations of the vacuum. Since the energy associated with the Zitterbuergang motion is an internal particle energy that is not directly observable, we identify this energy as the corresponding rest mass of the particle. Okay, well, that's not the right spot, maybe. In this, maybe this is the right time. It's hard to understand what he's writing here. In this view, the particle mass m is of dynamical origin, originating in parton motion response to the electromagnetic 0-point fluctuations of the vacuum. It is therefore simply a special case of the general proposition that the internal kinetic energy of a system contributes to the effective mass of the system. This derivation of mass as an internal kinetic energy of motion is thus the first result derived from the Zitterbuergang model. As will be shown in later sections, it is this mass that is involved in the gravitational interaction. So that part I can't really explain very well, but the conclusion will explain it for you guys, I think, in a way that makes sense. It's all about the spin. Yeah, it could be. Could be all about the spin. Wouldn't surprise me. There's a lot of stuff related to vortex and stuff that I haven't really got into yet. And when it comes to the Zitterbuergang, if you read the full paper, he talks about it in like a 2-dimensional model instead of a 3-dimensional model, just to simplify the math and the equations. But obviously, we have 3 dimensions. Okay, might skip through this part. Okay, I think this is good. Zitterbuergang motion, I'm over here, therefore leads to the generation of electromagnetic field distribution in proximity to the mass that is proportional to the frequency times mass squared divided by r to the 4th power. And upon detailed examination is found to be half electric, half magnetic. Electromagnetic fields. According to 6, which is another equation, moreover, a field of just this form is required by the principle of equivalence, under the assumption that the gravitational and rest masses are identical and can be equated to obtain the cutoff frequency, which satisfies the Sakharov condition. In terms of the cutoff frequency, can be inverted to yield the gravitational constant g in the form of the second Sakharov condition. So what he's saying here is that the Zitterbuergang motion, it ends up, when you do the math, to be exactly what we need it to be in order for this solution to basically make sense, for our puzzle pieces to fit into place here. And it ends up giving us big G, which is the gravitational constant that we need. We see, therefore, that the principle of equivalence requires a certain modification of the 0-point fluctuation background by gravitational mass, and that the Zitterbuergang model of mass implies a similar modification. So we're seeing here that we can manipulate gravity through manipulation of adding mass or manipulating the Zitterbuergang, which is the 0-point fluctuations of energy that are all around. Furthermore, the compatibility of the 2 conditions on a precise quantitative basis requires only the equivalence of gravitational and rest masses and a limiting cutoff frequency for the ZPF background on the order of the Planck frequency. Now, right there, when I think about the Planck frequency, I'm immediately thinking about the Superforce and Salvatore Pais. Like, he definitely read this paper, no doubt. Okay. I'll try to post this paper again without sharing the invite. My bad on that, chat. There you go. Okay. This specification of the cutoff frequency and its relationship to the gravitational constant g is thus the second result derived from the Zitterbuergang model. Thus, we have a derivation that yields the relationships postulated to exist in dynamical scale invariance breaking models of gravity as symmetry breaking effect. So gravity is essentially just breaking the symmetry. If you want to think of symmetry, symmetry is like we get something in perfect symmetry, like my face. You break one side, you make there be a difference between one side and the other. And now what are you going to get? You're going to get a gravitational effect. This side pulls to this side, or this side pulls to this side, or this side repulses from this side. And this is where basically symmetry is what all of this comes down to. You know, everything comes down to symmetry. Now, the gravitational force. Let's go down to here. Let's go down to the bottom. We see therefore that the potential has the desired 1 divided by r dependence required for gravity, modulated by a fine structure overlay of the form sine r divided by r all squared, which has the spatial periodicity characteristic of the cutoff Planck frequency. If we extract the leading non-oscillatory term, we find the potential and force equal to these equations. A careful examination of the details of averaging over the rapid spatial variation indicates that the particle experiences an average force given by the leading term 61. With, I'm going to have to learn my Greek terms, whatever this weird shape is, given by equation 23, and w to the c by equation 39. F can be written as this. This derivation of Newton's law, which expresses gravity as the van der Waals force, is thus the third and final result derived from the Zitterbuergang model. Okay, so then he's going to explain these, and this should all start to put it together for you guys, and then I'll kind of speak to it a little bit as well. Okay. Also, whoever's listening at the bus stop, that's awesome. Hi, bus stop people. We begin our discussion by reiterating the logic flow of the approach pursued here. So he's just going to basically, the same thing that I just did, explaining what we derived, he explains it again. The basic thesis is that the Sakharov proposal that gravity is not a separately existing fundamental force, but rather a residuum force derived from the zero-point fluctuations of other fields in the manner of the Casimir and van der Waals forces. That basically gravity is fundamentally equivalent to the idea of the Casimir force or the van der Waals force. Particularizing this hypothesis to the zero-point fluctuations of the vacuum electromagnetic field, we identify the gravitational force as the van der Waals force associated with the long-range radiation fields, as opposed to the usual short-range induction fields, generated by the Zitterbuergang particle motion response to the zero-point fluctuations of the electromagnetic field. The steps in this identification are 3. First, particle mass is defined as the internal, that is unobserved, kinetic energy of the Zitterbuergang motion. Its value is set by a radiation dampening constant, which is whatever hangman I'm going to call it, the hangman symbol, intrinsic to the particle. In conjunction with the value of the universal cutoff frequency w to the c. Second, the value of the cutoff frequency is determined by the equivalence principle. This principle sets a requirement that the expected additional contribution to the free space Lorentz frame zero-point fluctuation spectrum viewed from an accelerated frame is to be equated to a similar contribution expected in an unaccelerated frame. But in a gravitational field, that is near a particle performing Zitterbuergang motion and therefore generating a mass. Third, a straightforward calculation of the long-range van der Waals force associated with the radiation field correlated motions of such particles whose parameters are determined by the above 2 steps leads to Newton's law with no free parameters to be fixed. So what this then means, with a detailed theory in hand, certain attributes of the gravitational interaction become explicable in fundamental terms. As mentioned earlier, the relative weakness of the gravitational force is due to the fact that the coupling constant is determined by equation 40. G equals pi times speed of light to the power of 5 divided by, I think this is something like the Planck something or other, W squared C. Anyway, reflects as an inverse square the high value of the zero-point fluctuation cutoff frequency. So basically, the equations in math explain why the gravitational force is so weak. We think that it's strong, but look how big the planet is that we're on. With regards to the attractive nature of gravity, this is simply a reflection of the property typical of the van der Waals forces in general. The fact that the gravitational interaction is characterized by a unipolar single-value charge can be traced to a positive-only kinetic energy basis for the mass parameter. So why do we, so the answer here, he says, is that gravity is essentially the same as the van der Waals force, but scaled up. And why do we only see it go in one direction? Why do we always see gravity go in one direction? It's because we're always seeing positive mass. We're never seeing negative mass or negative energy. So that's why he's saying we always see it in a unidirection, single value charge. The lack of shielding effects in gravity. So we say you can't shield gravity. This can also be comprehended on a rational basis. As understood here, this is a consequence of the fact that the 0-point fluctuation noise all around us in general cannot be shielded. A factor which in other contexts sets the lower limit on the detectability of electromagnetic signals. Specifically, in the case of ordinary electromagnetic shielding, macroscopic materials constitute dense boundaries that substantially alter field distributions, with shielding one consequence. In the case of gravity, though, matter constitutes a dilute particle gas in an essentially high-frequency hohlraum. As a result, particle 0-point fluctuation interactions have a negligible effect on the overall field distribution, hence the lack of shielding, while nonetheless permitting particle-particle interactions that led to an attractive potential. So what he's saying here is that a macroscopic object, let's take this can here, can displace electromagnetic fields. You can make a Faraday cage. Faraday cage will prevent electromagnetic fields from going into it. But it doesn't stop gravity, because when gravity looks at it, what is this actually made of? It's just made of tiny particles. Most of this is 99% nothing. If you were to actually look at it, the reason why my hand doesn't go through this is because the electrons in my hand bounce off the electrons of the can, and they repel when they get really close. So what he's saying here is that the gravity can go right through that, because the gravity is happening on a scale it's so small that it essentially passes directly through the can. So the electromagnetic waves can be blocked, but the gravitational effects cannot be blocked. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, we're almost done. In addition, implicit in the development pursued here are issues that extend beyond the gravitational interaction, such as mass renormalization and possible 0-point fluctuation induced contributions to the binding forces within the nucleus. However, many of the inferences that can be drawn from this study, the most important is simply the fact that it is possible to carry through the basic Sakharov program, namely to uncover a basis for gravity in the 0-point fluctuation of other non-gravitational fields. In particular, we have been able to explicate a first-order model based on 0-point fluctuations of the vacuum electromagnetic field alone, once we take into account its effects on particle motion. The model thus details an electromagnetic basis for gravity. Assuming the model is in proper representation of the gravitational interaction, the already unified aspect of the model would seem to mitigate against mechanical attempts at unification of gravity as a separate force, or quantization of gravity as a separate field, in favor of a viewpoint more aligned with that presented here. So what he's saying is that basically when we do the math, it all calculates out, and there's no extra values that we have to figure out. Like, all the math is proven, like 1 equals 1. So when you do the math, everything calculates out perfectly as we would expect, that electromagnetism perfectly explains gravity. We don't need anything else. And if that's the case, then gravity is never going to be explained as a separate force, because it's already been explained by the forces that we already know about, the 4 fundamental forces. Or I guess if gravity is one of those, then there's only maybe 3. And then it's also saying that it's never going to be explained as a separate field of a quantization of gravity either, because again, we've already figured it out. So he's saying that there's no way to improve or build upon this any further. Like, this is the fundamental level based on what we already know. Kind of cool. It is therefore seen that a well-defined, precise quantitative argument can be made that gravity is a form of long-range van der Waals force associated with the particles' Buogong response to the 0-point fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. As such, the gravitational interaction takes its place alongside the short-range van der Waals force and the Casimir force as related phenomenon which emerge from the underlying dynamics of the interaction of particles with the 0-point fluctuations of the vacuum electromagnetic field. Wow, chat. So for me, reading that, it pretty much explains all of what this explains gravity perfectly, frankly. And is assuming the math holds up, which paper was 37 years ago or something like that, 35 years ago. I imagine somebody would have found some errors in the math. Then I don't know how you can even argue against it. I mean, the paper literally says the math checks out perfectly once you do it, and there isn't anything else that needs to be accounted for. Like the math will account for the fact that the 0-point fluctuations that are out there can account for gravity, as well as with the fact that we have a huge amount of mass will add to the 0-point fluctuation energy that's bending the space-time itself. And that it's basically a form of van der Waals force that falls off at these, according to the inverse square law, so that it gets weaker and weaker as we go on. And it also explains why the force is so weak to begin with as well. So basically it accounts for all the requirements that we need in order to be able to explain gravity. And the beauty of this then is that now we have a way to manipulate gravity. Once you understand how gravity is formed through the 0-point energy densities all around us, or manipulating the ether, then you can figure out, well, now if we can manipulate that, then we can manipulate gravity as well. We can add energy density to a location, and we can create a gravitational attractive force, or we can remove it. If we remove the 0-point fluctuations, like with the Casimir force, then we can have a negative energy pressure differential. And we don't need to use plates to do it. Now that we understand what the effect is coming from, where it's coming from, now we just have to figure out how to engineer it in order to manipulate it. So, in my opinion, if we figured this out, I'm just a dude on Twitter who's a business major and a healthcare IT consultant, and you guys are followers here. If we can figure this out, you don't think the United States military figured this out in the Black Project programs? Heck, Hal Puthoff works on Black projects. I mean, the guy who wrote this paper works for the government on Black projects. I have it on pretty good authority. He's extremely wealthy too from his work. So, first of all, praise to Hal Puthoff. This guy, he's on my Rushmore for sure. I'd want to talk to him in like a skiff or over a beer in a quiet spot and know what that guy knows, because whatever that guy knows, man, shit, I'm going to take that with a really high degree of certainty that he knows what he's talking about. And then this opens the door to, well, like the thing that I thought was the thing that kind of blew my mind was, okay, if you can explain why mass adds to the 0-point energy field in a local region, like our Earth, for example, is what I think about the Earth, adding to the mass and adding to creating this gravitational force, then we can start to wrap our brains around this idea of how we could create a void where we could have a negative energy pressure differential. And energy is energy. Negative energy isn't some magical inverse of energy. You could think of it like the mirror reflection of energy, but it's still just energy. And so then it just becomes a matter of looking at things in a symmetrical perspective. Instead of looking at the space-time as nothing down here, look at space-time as this. Pull here, pull there, pull here, pull there. You see the symmetry here? When you see the symmetry here, it's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. You're just looking at it. Is the bizarro me a less real version of me? Like if there's a reflection of me, and they're exactly who I am, which one's the real one? Doesn't really matter, right? We're both exactly the same as energy. So there you go, guys. Hope you guys appreciate that. Yeah, yin and yang. You can think about it however you want. I mean, I think that there's a reason why we see a lot of these same concepts in culture, science, nature, everything around us. I try not to dig too much into those esoteric meanings for everything. I just want to know how it works and why it works, and then I'm good to go with it. Okay. So now that I've said that, I'm going to do the last 5 minutes of how the world's so fucked up, and then we'll close out the stream for tonight. I hope you guys appreciated those. Friday, we're going to do Free Energy Friday. We will talk about dipoles, Thomas Bearden, extracting energy from the vacuum, dynamic Casimir effect as well. We're going to watch the video about Casimir cavities. So probably going to have a pretty long stream on Friday. I'm going to probably have to figure out a way to make it kind of short. But we're going to like really dig into how to extract energy from the environment now that we know these concepts of 0-point energy and that how 0-point energy is now connected to gravity. Also, keep in mind that if you were to extract that energy, if you were to move the energy from one location to the other, keep in mind heat is energy as well. Heat is, right? So if you're pulling energy out of location, what would you expect to happen? You would expect it to cool down at the expense of increasing over here. So why do free energy devices cool down? Well, now it's self-explanatory. You're pulling energy out of a location, it's going to cool down. You're pulling the energy out of the vacuum all around you. So there you go. Ashton's going to build a flying saucer on stream. Okay, so what I'll say, guys, is that like quite a lot of people that I find pretty credible are telling me that there is some sort of non-human intelligence presence on Earth. I don't have any specific answers for what the basis of it is. I don't really have any hard time believing it in general. I think that if I had to choose, my top three would be artificial intelligence, ultra terrestrials, or some kind of prison planet scenario. Those would be my top three in terms of just what I know. Because I mean, you look at the suppression of this and what it leads to, and it's like it's pretty damn dark in general. I also hear the same stuff that everybody else hears about this idea of spiritual in nature and extra dimensional. Not sure I still buy into a lot of that. I'm going to have to see a being in order for me to be like, yeah, okay, that's extra dimensional. Because otherwise, when I think about the ether, I'm not thinking about a bizarro world that you're going and hanging out in. But, you know, can't really rule much out. If there's an extra dimension that we can't perceive, then could there be beings that are, you know, that's their primary location of living? I don't know, maybe, not sure. So the other stuff that's messed up, right, is just like where civilization's at right now. I mean, holy shit, man. I look at my Twitter feed like every day, and it's just the social issues and political issues that we're dealing with are like destroying the fabric of society and destroying our country, United States, other countries as well. I look at stuff like Russia where like they have a more authoritarian approach, but at the same time, like you might need that in order to keep society in line. Like we're just ripping ourselves apart at the seams at this point. And the amount of disinformation and misinformation and just general ignorance that's out there only makes matters worse, right? Like I went to the gas station right before this. And the first thing I noticed was just a homeless lady, let's say, probably in her 20s. And she's just like rolling the lint off of her dirty sandals at the side of the gas station. And I just look at her and go like, why? There's no reason for this woman to be homeless at all. I don't know the background of her situation, her life, but I imagine it wasn't easy. But like, why do we have people that are just like living on the streets? Makes no sense. And then as I was leaving the gas station, I noticed a man in a dress with heels that he was carrying, just walking barefoot outside the gas station as well. And I'm sure he was also homeless, or she, whatever they go by. I don't know what their pronouns were or whatever. But just the fact that we even have shit like pronouns and all of this just goes to show that like everybody out there is looking for some kind of purpose out there in life right now, and they don't have it. And they're trying to invent that purpose, whatever that is, to feel special, feel like what their point in life is in general. And then you look at all this shit that's out there and all this terrible situations that people are in. And you just wonder, would these people still be in these situations if we had free energy, for example, or if we had the ability to travel the stars? Like, could these people be engineers? Could they be a warp drive mechanic? Could they be really anything that they want to be? If we have free energy, we can do anything we fucking want to do. We don't have to do anything. We can make robots that are perpetual motion machines that do everything that we need. Like that's where society should be headed. And instead, we've got this huge class imbalance where you've got the people that I'm talking about. They're like the poorest people that have nothing, that are just searching for any purpose in their life. And then we've got the elites who literally have free energy and warp drive technology and what have you. Maybe there's aliens or non-human intelligence. I don't know. Maybe they're running the scene. I'm not sure, but they're up there with the elites. I'm just wondering, why is all this shit being allowed to happen? You know, it's messed up, really messed up. And then you look at it from the big scale, because somebody was arguing with Ryan actually in my replies, and this will be the last thing I'll say. So, Ashton doesn't see like the bigger picture of the suppression of this. Oh, yes, I do. You think I don't understand what's at stake here, what's going on, and how this has been suppressed? I think I probably understand better than just about everybody on this planet how this has all been suppressed. Does that mean I should stop trying? Of course not. It means that you have to, like, everybody's trying different ways to get the information out there, and I'm just trying a way myself as well, which is somewhere in the middle of the road. There's this anime, one of my favorites, called Code Geass. And the protagonist and the antagonist, you could argue which one's the good one and which one's the bad one, but one of them is trying to change the system from the outside, use the power they've been given to tear down the old system and rebuild the new. And the other one is trying to change it from the inside. And he joins the ranks of the people who are technically evil, but he's good, and he's trying to change it from the inside. I think that you should look at the world from that perspective and which one of those is going to be successful. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what happens in the anime, but you can see the world from those perspectives and go, okay, well, those are your choices. You can either try to tear it down from the outside and battle against the forces that are out there, or you can try to change it from the inside and change it from there. There's lots of ways to skin the cat, so to speak. So I'm doing whatever I can to make a small difference in this world and hopefully teach people. The number one thing I want to do is empower people with the information, not necessarily how to engineer a doomsday weapon, but how to look at the universe the way that it should be viewed from a physics perspective, so that at some point this information will become self-evident, and then everybody will know that it's possible, and then people can engineer things that will help make the world a better place. A lot of the engineers that are out there, they refuse to build weapons. They will only build things that will help humanity. It's probably not who I'm going to be, but I appreciate that viewpoint. I think that people are inherently good, and hopefully the people that watch these streams and understand this information will learn that. So if you guys could do one thing for me, the only thing I want you to do, not like the stream and subscribe, that's usually what people would say. I want you to inspire the next generation. I want to inspire them with hope, inspire them with tales of where we can be as a society, of free energy, of Star Trek world, to give them purpose and have them teach themselves the science that's out there, so that they can help make the world a better place. I think this is going to happen over a long, long period of time, maybe even longer than all of our lifetimes. And if that's the case, we got to get started right now. So do that for me, guys. I appreciate you. For the record, somebody was asking, I don't take direct requests of information. If you do want to have information that you want me to look at, you've got to do it through the Discord. That's the only way that I don't solicit information directly from people, because otherwise I would get spammed. Honestly, I don't even respond to DMs mostly anymore. So I'm too busy, guys. I'm basically working 3 jobs. No, it's nothing personal. So here's a Discord invite if you guys want to jump into the MH370X Discord. Once again, Friday, Thomas Bearden, Casimir effect, Casimir cavities, dynamic Casimir effect, and extracting energy from the vacuum. Should be a fun one, guys. So hope you have a great night. Peace out, MH370. Love you guys. Sorry, MH370X. I'm going to play us out with one of our old school songs, I think, today. How about, actually, no, we're going to play out with the one that's all about the science. Wait, where is it? Here we go. Okay, later, guys.
Out in the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight. Just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow.
Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeeze so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism plates so fine, spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plates, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos, our